All right, guys, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about, I guess, KVK drama, right? What happened in Diplo? Obviously, there's been a lot of information that comes out. The people that follow this stuff, they probably already heard a version of it. So this is just kind of my version, right? I want to acknowledge this is my experience of what happened. Some of the stuff I'll present is just what happened. Some of it is my interpretation. I'll clarify on that. But essentially, we queued up for Alliance Invictus. And then 2 nights ago, actually wait, 3 nights ago now, I'm in Eastern Standard Time, so when it's reset it's actually like 8 p.m. for me, but 3 nights ago it was announced that this is going to be the matchup, right? So you can see on here, once the matchup came out, we're like, why are we in fire camp? Because we do not feel like we're the strongest camp, which is traditionally where fire camp is, right? And then two, it was very, very clear looking at this, at least from our standpoint, right? There's one camp, at least statistically, they seem a lot weaker than the other five, which is Daybreak. And then if you look at the composition of every camp, right? Earth, Fire, Daybreak, and Greenwood, we're all composed of one kingdom with much higher KP, and then one kingdom with much lower KP. The exception is Wind. They're pretty balanced, but both of their top alliances has significantly less KP than the top alliance in all the other camps besides Daybreak. Like it was just like a weird matchup for Daybreak, right? Because if Daybreak also got another kingdom with say like 500 something bill KP, then literally you could have put it a bunch of different ways and it wouldn't have been too skewed one way or another, at least on paper, right? The other thing I want to say is when I'm mentioning different kingdoms or different camps, I'm really talking about the experience dealing with leadership. There's obviously people that make up the kingdoms. A lot of times I have no idea what's going on, right? Like when I was not in leadership, I had no idea what's going on in 68 with leadership. When I was in my old kingdom, I was just a member, right? Like we really don't have much of a say what our leadership does. We just kind of go along with it, right? So I want to clarify that. And I imagine like that your government is not necessarily a full representation of you as a person, right? Like what they do, you don't necessarily condone, but they just do what they do, and you are almost forced to go along with it. So I do want to clarify that because, there's people I know in other in some of these kingdoms, and this is nothing on them. It's really just the experience dealing with leadership and then what happened. Okay, so essentially here on the left, this is the top alliance or the main alliance, right? Every kingdom, for the most part now, is a one alliance kingdom, and this is their stats. And then like a day or two later, Flash reveal or released his data for this map, or once a map's released, then we could do flight just scan. You can see it kind of hides some of this data a little bit, but it's still kind of obvious what I'm talking about. So we think Daybreak is probably on paper the weakest. Fire and Water, so we're Fire and Water are probably the next two. And then for us, there's like three clear camps that are like on the stronger side, right? You have Earth and Greenwood, which have the two strongest kingdoms and also probably the highest spenders. And then you have Wind, which they actually have a less KP top alliance, but they're actually the most well balanced, right? So not sure which one's stronger. Is it more like swarming power, spending, or is it just more balance and numbers? Like, it's debatable. But we think Earth, Wind, Greenwood are the three strongest. And then Fire and Water is about the same. And then Daybreak is on paper clearly the weakest. So that's what we thought going in. Right now, this is where it gets a little weird because just describing what happened in Discord, right? We essentially invited everyone to a Discord channel. It just felt really, really slow from the beginning. Nobody really wanted to say anything. When they did say some stuff, it was very artificial. And then Greenwood, actually early on, within maybe 10-15 minutes of joining, they brought up, hey, sorry to be blunt, but there's like several sources of allegations that Earth and Greenwood have already pre-allied. Is that true? And it literally just killed the conversation. No one said anything after that. And after like a long, long, long awkward silence, I'm talking about like maybe like an hour, I guess someone brought up, hey, it looks like nothing's going to get done tonight or today. Let's just reconvene at 12 UTC tomorrow, which for me would be 8 a.m. Right now. It makes sense why there could also be some pre-allying going on with Earth and Greenwood because they're both Vietnamese kingdoms. Pho, I think most people, if they do know him from 2489, I think he's the king or one of the co-kings, essentially in leadership of 2489. he actually has a account in 2975. So does Arvix, who is also in 2489. But he also has an account in 2748. So you can see here's his account in 2975. Here's his account in 2748. Now, to be fair, Greenwood said early on that Pho had bought this account in 2748, and he was planning on migrating it out. So he was saying that they were essentially arguing from almost the very beginning how whatever their power and KP is showing, it's not real, because they're going to lose this account before KVK. It was just waiting to be migrated to 2489. So they said, like, whatever KP they show, subtract that by 70 bill, right? We could take it or leave it, but that's what they said in the beginning. But regardless, there's a very, very high power player and high KP player that's actually in both of those kingdoms, right? They're both Vietnamese. And then there's a lot of just sources, you know, the other stuff I wasn't able to confirm. Apparently there was like a, I don't know, either YouTube or podcast or something where they're already talking about like they're going to work together, things like that, right? But essentially, Greenwood asked that, they never addressed it or responded, right? So when we reconvened the next day, and this is where it was really weird, because you would think the two strongest kingdoms would have more say, but 2975 especially said very little this whole Diplo chat, and it made it really difficult. Everyone was saying hi the next morning. The first thing they said was, we didn't, because we didn't skip at all, we're actually really drained, right? And obviously the immediate like question and concern is, why are you telling us you're drained already? And then if you are drained, then why did you queue, right? That would make no sense. But anyways, that's the position they decided to go on. And then we kind of like pushed back, like, well, then why did you queue? They never actually really responded. They just went silent after that. What was really weird was 2748, right? The kingdom that supposedly they pre-allied with, was doing almost all the talking. And a lot of the talking they were doing was actually talking about how 2975 is draining resources. They're not going to fight in the zone 5 when pass 4 opens. They're a lot weaker than they think seem on paper. And we even like brought it up several times, asking them like, why are you speaking for 2975? Does this mean you guys pre-allied? What's going on? They just literally just never answered, and they'll just kind of say that. So Panther in 2268, some of you guys might know him, essentially brought up, hey guys, like, you know, if you guys are going to pre-ally, that's fine, right? That's the two strongest camps. If you're going to do that, then we'll just do a 2v4 and we'll just go from there, right? And this is when Greenwood said, okay, fine, we're not going to ally. All right, they actually said that. There's screenshots of all this. I prefer not to post screenshots of what happened in Discord, just because, you know, it's supposed to be a communication between people that are in the Discord, right? But at this point, there's a lot of stories coming out from all sides. So I'll at least talk about what happened. So then they say, fine, we're not going to ally. They backed off of that. And they were really just passive and quiet after that. 2975 literally just didn't say anything, right? So the discussion was mostly fire, daybreak, wind, and water on what we're going to do, right? Someone proposed left versus right. And if you know kind of our thought process before, right? If daybreak we think is the weakest, and then us and water about the same, and then we think earth, wind, and green was the strongest, if it's left and right, we feel like we would have been at a disadvantage. So obviously we push back and say, hey, look, we don't think that's fair. Let's do something else. We actually wanted zigzag, so fire, wind, and greenwood, right? Now, the reason why we want zigzag is if you zigzag this way, then one, every kingdom will actually have a zone 5 fight when pass 4 open. So we would fight daybreak, greenwood would fight water, and then wind would fight earth. Right now, when we proposed that, Greenwood actually didn't even say anything because we were proposing to ally with them. Earth didn't say anything. Daybreak and water pushed back on that, right? And water then suggested, hey, instead of doing the zigzag, why don't we do fire, wind, water, and then earth, daybreak, greenwood, right? So instead of zigzagging, we're just giving them greenwood, and then we take water, right? Now, they also said, hey, like, you know, like, it's clear you guys don't want to ally with us, all that stuff. It's no secret, right? We fought in the last KVK, but also strategically, the big concern if we did that is going across is we're assuming Earth is just stronger than us, right? On paper they are. We know they have a lot more spenders. We lost a lot. I'm thinking they lost a lot too, so maybe they're not as confident. But on paper, it just seems like they're like a notch above where we're at, right? So it's not so much what happens like even the starting zone or even like down here in the outer zone. It's once you get into Kingsland, if we enter here, right, and then they're here, and then we're surrounded by Earth and Daybreak, right, we're gonna get 2v1. Like it's pretty obvious we're gonna get 2v1, and we'll probably actually we're 3v1, right, because Earth, Daybreak, and Greenwood in that case would be on the same side. We would likely get pushed out. We're more likely to get pushed out faster than 2975 will get pushed out. Like we feel like they could probably hold against us, wind and water, better than we can hold against them. So no one wants to get pushed out. It's very, very hard, like 2v3, right? So strategically, we really would prefer zigzag. It's one, it's a lot harder to get surrounded, and we felt like that would have been like a good matchup for us. Now, just to be really, really honest, I felt like if it was fire, wind, water, Greenwood, right? I think going in, we would feel like we were the favorites. It was fire, wind. Fire, wind, Greenwood. We feel like we would go in the favorites. It's fire, wind, water. There's a concern. It's probably more even. I feel like we would probably be a slight underdog, uh, and that's why we kind of pushed back against water, wanting to be on our side, which is really weird because it's essentially we ended up getting an argument where their argument was to be on our side, and our argument was actually for them to not be on our side, which was kind of weird. Where I would say it kind of crossed the line is right, we're just talking about strategic stuff, and then it started somehow turning into talking about what happened in the last KVK. If you guys followed our last KVK, 2268, 1770, 1824, and actually the smaller Kingdom and Daybreak, 1756, were all on the same map. Fire and Daybreak were 68 and 1756 were on allies, and then 1770 and 1824 were allies, right? And that diplo, I wasn't actually in leadership yet, so I don't know, but it went really quick. From what I was told, it was 15 minutes. 1824 side proposed, we accepted, and then we just worked out the details. How was it? It was no drama, really, really quick. Right, it was over. Like almost like the complete opposite for this. But I actually ended up reaching out to Scotty. I don't know if he'll accept the apology, but I apologized to him just for how like we showed up during that part of the diplo. To me, across the line when you start talking about what happened in the past KVK, but it was still at least talking about the game and it was not productive, but it's not that toxic. It just wasn't really moving diplo forward, right? But anyways, after we kind of got into that, it kind of got quiet again. Right now, then fast forward X amount of hours. The next morning, we got this. We saw a marker in 2975 where they just announced the allies: Earth, Water, Greenwood. Right now, to go back, right? Earth really didn't say anything. The first thing they said was that they were trained. They didn't really say anything. The second thing they said, and maybe like 12 hours later, was that we want Earth, Greenwood, and Water. They say that's fair, right? And if you kind of know our thought process before, if we think Daybreak is the weakest, and then Fire and Water is the second weakest, and Earth, Greenwood, and Wind are probably the three strongest, if it was Earth, Greenwood, and Water, that would be a significant advantage on their side, right? Probably 70-30, 65-35 at minimum advantage on their side. So obviously when they brought that up, we're like, hey, that's not fair. We pushed back on that, right? And then the next morning when we woke up, apparently they had already allied, but never told us. So we literally had to find out. Someone sent us a screenshot of the marker in their kingdom, and then we asked them about it. They essentially the guy in 2975 said, hey, you guys are dictators. You guys just want to like diplo like an easy win. And so, this is the matchup because we think it's fair. And that's it. And then that's when someone brought up, is this because Phu's influence and stuff? And Phu jumped in. And like, if you want to say like whatever happened between Fire and Water was like a 2, what happened with Phu and then there was probably like an 8, right? It got really nasty. Definitely didn't need to get like that, but it was definitely a lot of bad blood that happened there. And then essentially that was it, right? And then from there, thing like screenshots came out. It's 68 sitting out, all this stuff, right? A lot of it's one just emotion. So I made a video about this a while ago, talking about the worst thing you could do in Diplo. I think the worst thing you could do in Diplo is to sit out, right? Even if you feel like it's unfair, you literally get 3 or 4 KVKs a year, right? Players, again, I talked about players and leadership, it's separate. Players in Kingdom, they look forward to it. They're building their commanders, armaments, equipment. Your job as leadership in Diplo is to try to Diplo a pretty fair matchup, so it could be competitive, right? There's lots of fighting, so players could go out and have fun, and then also like no matter what, even if you do feel it's unfair, you at least still like fight, right? Like it to me it's a bad precedent because when you have that long of a off season or like non-fighting, or you're a kingdom that has sat out of a kvk, it for me personally, like I wouldn't want to migrate there just because, well, if they've sat out a kvk before, there's always that risk that they're going to sit out again, right? Never mind all this other stuff. So I know not everyone agrees with that. That's my personal opinion. But I will say that after having this experience, I actually totally understand why some people out of anger will want to sit out. Because when you feel like you just got screwed over and just got like some matchup dictated to you that you didn't even get to really negotiate, right? Like the initial thought is, well, to punish them, they're not going to get fighting either. And we're going to sit out. So I totally understand that. But having said all of that, I still think, if you end up getting some like ridiculous matchup pushed against you, why not just let people know what happened, let your kingdom know what happened, and then fight all out anyways? And I think for the most part, people in your kingdom would appreciate that. And if you are doing migration from the outside, when people see that, hey, you know what, this kingdom will fight regardless, like that to me is a very motivating factor. And if someone sees that and they want to join our kingdom, I want that mentality, right? So having said all that, we are going to fight no matter what. We're not sitting out, right? We're just not, right? But I know that was some of the allegations. Some people have been using like clickbait titles and all this stuff, right? Like you'd probably take a screenshot where like someone said, well, enjoy your farming kvk or stuff like that. But it's just some initial emotions. We're not sitting out. Okay. Now, my big problem with this is not us and water. Like I feel like, it just kind of crossed the line into talking about the last kvk. It wasn't necessary, but it was still at least a strategic discussion, talking about ally, and we're trying to make it, we're actually communicating. My biggest problem with this is how Earth and Greenwood, and specifically 2975 and 2748 went about it. 2975 essentially was just quiet and didn't say much. 2748 spoke on behalf of 2975, and they literally didn't suggest or say anything. They just kind of passively said, no, we don't think this is fair. We don't think this is fair. It literally did not contribute to the Diplo. At least Greenwood would still respond. And Greenwood, I mean 2748. 2975 just didn't respond. Like they barely talked at all. The only time they did say was just they think we should do Earth, Greenwood, Water, which they ended up getting, right? And the other thing that was really frustrating was to find out what the Diplo was from a marker that they posted in their kingdom, and they didn't even tell us, right? It's just like, okay, so the allegations were true. You guys probably already decided that you wanted to pre-ally together, and then you were just kind of like finding an opportunity to use an excuse to pounce, and then to make it seem like you guys were the victims or something, and then like we're the villains. It felt very like, what's the word I want to use? Like we were like gaslit or manipulated, and they already had this plan from the beginning, right? Now, that's just my experience of it. That's what I feel. I'm sure if you watch a video from their side of what happened, you'll get a very different narrative. But I at least want to paint from my experience what happened, and then like what I view right now. Having said this, if you guys know what happened in 2975 during the last kvk, I had no idea, right? I had no idea what happened in Diplo, right? They essentially ended up doing like a 1v12 or something. It was crazy. And they ended up just getting completely outnumbered and lost in Kingsland. But afterwards, I saw a lot of just like negativity towards 2975 on Facebook and YouTube. And at the time, I was like, man, it's so toxic, right? But actually having experience dealing with 2975 specifically, and then, and again, I'm talking about leadership, not the kingdom, and then to a lesser degree 2748, it just felt like we were everything was manipulated from the start. And it just felt really shady and messed up, just be honest, right? And if I go to this one, right, Amir, who is another YouTuber, I've been following his sub. He's a free to play player. Definitely sub to him if you're interested, right? But he made a video and he actually posted the screenshot in his video from this last KVK, right? And basically, this is how Diplo went down. And by the way, this is the guy that when 2975 did say something, this guy was actually the guy that was talking, right? But it was just apparently, from what I gather, it was just dictated to everyone else in that last KBK that 1648 and 2975 are going to be allies or friends. So we're going to be allies, and then we're just going to fight you guys. And no one else had a say. And it really pissed a lot of people off, right? And if you look at what Amir said, how a selfish kingdom ruins the experience of all camps in KVK 101. And you know what? I actually kind of resonate with that, because being in Diplo chat this time, that's kind of felt what it felt like happened, right? What he wrote: it's been a while since I encountered a kingdom self-centered and arrogant, such as 2975, and we've all been extra motivated from their actions. Me too, I'm extra motivated from the beginning. We were basically forced into this 2v4 matchup, and it ruined the fun and fighting capability for most of us. I hope they learn from this. I don't think they have. And other kingdoms see this and observe that what not to do, because it will hinder the kingdom in the long run when you have relations like this. And I'm literally posting this feeling a lot of the same thing. Hopefully people actually at least catch on. This is the second KVK in a row that it feels like 2975 did this. And literally, like, this is what not to do, right? Like, there was just no participation, and it just felt like they were just kind of waiting back. And then when they get a chance, it just said, hey, you know what? You guys are being dictators, whatever, like some excuse that we were in the wrong. This is why we're pre-allying, or this is why we're allying with Greenwood, which they already probably pre-allied anyways. This is another one from a Facebook group. Have fun with 2975, an arrogant and selfish kingdom. I'm sure they will post the matchup here once they have figured out what is best and easiest for them to farm kills. Someone said they're trying to ally with the strongest 2748, 1824. And then the original guy says, sounds about right. They did the same to us and announced on Facebook before talking to us. They literally put a marker in their kingdom before talking to us. They could care less about the best match. They dodged a different matchmaking before landing in this one, as they are scared of anything close to an even fight. Trash kingdom. All right, so like I actually resonate with a lot of that. Just kind of dealing with the last 3 days. My experience dealing with 2975 and 2748 is very similar to what other people are posting here. Like the other 4 kingdoms at least made an attempt to try to like get some kind of good matchup. I kind of wished Water Camp didn't go to their side, right? I wonder if we didn't actually get into that dispute, if they would have held out longer. But like, I understand from their perspective, right? Because if they felt like the zigzag wasn't fair, they would have a disadvantage. And then Earth and Greenwood just approached them and told them, hey, we'll take you as an ally, and then just screw them. And they take it. They're guaranteed, or not guaranteed to win, but they have a high chance of a win, right? And then after kind of what happened between us and them, and they decided to go there, I get it, right? Like, prefer they didn't, but I get it, right? But what I really have a problem with is Earth and Greenwood, and really to a degree, right? I talked about like kingdoms sitting out. Another thing to think about is if someone is in a KVK and there just seems to be a high percentage of kingdoms sitting out against them, right? Maybe they're not the ones sitting out, but maybe they're doing something when the other side feels it's not fair or just not just. And the emotional initial reaction is like, well, if you're going to screw us, we're going to screw you too, right? And 2489, look at their KVKs. A lot of the kingdoms that fight in their KVKs end up deciding to sit out. And, the rumor is that Pho is kind of pulling the strings in 2975, maybe 2748, right? He has a huge influence on the Viet community. Obviously, he has a lot of influence in 2489. This experience it was very shady. It felt very gaslighting and manipulative, right? And I'm actually motivated to just fight hard, right? I'm going in fully aware we're the underdog, but what drew me to 2268 initially anyways was the KVK when they fought 960. They were the clear underdogs, and they were very tenacious, right? Their stronger campmate 1034 bowed out pretty early, but they still actually kept pushing and fighting. And after seeing that, I'm like, you know what? I want to be part of that. So for 68, we plan on fighting all out, and just see, let the chips fall where they may. But that's from my perspective what happened in Diplo, right? Really no ill will towards water. Like I prefer they didn't do what they did, kind of just like go into the dark side. But I get it because like we did like end up, they wanted to be on our side and we told them no. We're holding out for Greenwood, but it almost feels like we got manipulated. Greenwood never had any intentions of doing anything other than allying with Earth, and as soon as they found like kind of like a weakness where there's a disagreement between two sides, it just pounced and roped them in. That's actually what it feels like, right? So if you had to ask my perspective, I think Earth and Greenwood are already pre-allied. They already knew they were going to partner up, and then once they saw that Water and us kind of weren't seeing eye to eye, they just roped them in and got them on their side. And going into this KVK, like it's, I don't know, to me it's clear like one side has an advantage, right? Do I think we have no chance of winning? There's always a chance, right? Because there's what's on paper and then how you actually show up. But going in, are we like pretty big underdogs? Yes. So that's my perspective. Obviously, people will have different perspectives. But again, if you watch all the way to the end, you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. And again, thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time.